and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
And we're back. It is the unofficial 40 podcast from Soonerscoop.com. Here it goes. 1 minute. Yeah, we welcome in the entire crew. Josh, Eddie, Bob, Carrie, we are all here as it is a post-transfer day. We won't even call it a signing day. Call it a post-transfer day as we met with Lincoln Riley, Alex Grinch, and Dennis Simmons, new assistant head coach Dennis Simmons. You can probably thank Texas for that. And boys, how are we doing today? We'll start with you, Josh. How is life treating you?
Life is good. It has settled down a little bit after a lot of weekend chaos. Dogs trying to kick the bucket on me. But other than that, man, good.
You're trying
What
to...
did you do yesterday, Josh?
I worked in the yard some. I got to go to the gym. Like, it was a weird... I did... Like, Monday evening, I started thinking, like, okay... Well, I don't know what I'm going to do because we did so much content on actual signing day. We got to stop calling it this, like, that's just signing day now. Whatever February is, we got to figure out a term for it, but that's not signing day. And so I like Monday, I was like, well, I don't know what we're going to do, and I was like, I don't know why I'm trying to make a big thing of this because nothing is happening. Like, this is the deadest of any signing day, February or December, I've ever seen. There is literally nothing of interest, although, I know some were, working on those donor dollars, pushing the Kamar Wheaton storyline.
Thank God that's over. That's all I have to say.
Yes.
I mean...
I don't think you're happy about it. I think you don't get to torture me with it about it, and you're kind of upset about that.
Maybe a little. There may be some truth in that statement.
Yeah.
I am genuinely happy for you that it's finally over, and I'm happy that we don't have to have any board meltdowns over that ass. So, I had this Alabama fan was DMing me. He's a big, like, Kings of Leon fan, but he's a big Alabama fan, and he knows kind of me and who I know and stuff like that. So he was trying to hit me up about info on the new album that's coming out next month, and I wouldn't tell him anything. But so we started talking about Alabama, and he's a very knowledgeable Alabama fan, and he was like, yeah, I hope it was good that we got Kamar. And I was like, yeah, I'm not really sold on how good he's going to be. I said, I'd hitch my wagon to Jace McClellan. And then he just starts rattling off. He's like, yeah, we got this guy and 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 this guy too. I was like, yeah, that's Alabama.
Yeah, they've got like 7 running backs that were top 50 guys in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, and Kamar Wheaton, who has shown, sometimes a lack of interest in football, is definitely going to go in there and I'm sure win Nick Saban's heart immediately. So that it's a choice. It's an interesting idea. It will be very interesting to see how that goes. And this is not sour grapes. This is something I have come to over time. I told you guys yesterday. I would, if you told me he gets 50 career college carries at Alabama, I would take the under.
I don't think Alabama fans realize how good Bryce Young is either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think they realize that most years are not going to be what Najee Harris did last year. Like, most years, it's not even going to be necessary. That's just the way the game is moving. You don't need to have one back that gets 20, 25 carries a game. That's not really the way it's going to work. And I think that is a tough reality for running backs to face, but it's coming. I mean, it's becoming the norm.
Well, I mean, that's the thing about, like, the running back position, just in general, is, like, you can have some of the school's best running backs in history. Like, we've watched some great running backs in Oklahoma. We've watched Adrian Peterson, DeMarco Murray, Quentin Griffin. And within those are some of the greatest running backs of all time, yet there's still such a difference between Adrian Peterson and everybody else. Or, Quentin Griffin was great. He's one of the best ever, but he never had an NFL career. DeMarco Murray was a Pro Bowler, but he wasn't quite Adrian Peterson. Like, it's the same thing with Alabama. Like, Mark Ingram won a Heisman, but he's clearly not a great running back in the NFL. Like, he's not Derrick Henry. And I think Najee Harris, we've talked about this before. I think he's going to be great. Of course, Saquon Barkley, we all thought he was going to be great, and he's been good, but he's been hurt. But he's not like an elite NFL running back, you can't say at this point. Of course, the Giants have just been trash since he's been there, so. I don't know. The running back is just such a weird position.
Yeah. If you are a middle school parent and you've got a kid that's really talented, keep putting him at running back, I'd be really trying to be like, do you want to play receiver? Think you can catch a little bit? Maybe we'll talk about that. There's a longer lifespan. There's better contracts. Running back is just it's a dying thing, and because it touches the ball so much, I think guys don't want to pay attention to that. But if you're thinking long term, and I want to make all the money I can make and have all the success I can have, play football as long as possible, running back is not what you need to be thinking about.
Or you want to be like Tyreek Hill.
Yeah. Be amazingly fast, and be so fast that people don't really care what you can do. They just want you on their team.
Billy Bowman is just like him.
One of the worst comparisons anybody that doesn't know shit about football has ever made.
Derailed my train of thought. What I was saying is, what's weird is because running backs not going high in the draft, they're actually going to really good teams now.
Yeah.
If you fall to 20 to 30, you're in almost elite status for teams playing for a conference championship. So it's kind of weird that the way the game has changed is actually helping running backs get to a better position at the next level.
Well, if the Colts weren't going to trade their first-round pick to get Deshaun Watson, I'd be all about having Najee Harris in the backfield. That guy's going to make us really good for the next 5 or 6 years, and then we're going to find a new running back. That's the way this goes. But our first-round draft pick is going to be in Houston, and that's fine. That's fine.
Interesting.
I'm going to speak it into existence.
Yeah.
Speak it into existence, exactly.
It doesn't sound like it sounds like they're just more than happy to have a disgruntled quarterback as their quarterback to me.
Well,
just
sure.
hoping that he won't be disgruntled. NFL owners are not built to be NBA owners to where they just let people go.
And you wonder if that's like a 53-man roster versus was it 15 in the NBA, whatever it is. It's harder. It's easier to minimalize that guy. He's just one guy in 53. One dude in 15, your locker rooms can get poisonous pretty fast like that. But
but if you're an NFL team, you can sure as hell choose to take your starting quarterback that you're paying $100 million to and trade him for somebody that's questionable.
Well, yeah, and I don't understand what do they feel like just, get a few more pieces around Deshaun Watson and it's all there? No, you've got to rebuild. So to me, you trade the guy, you get, and how easy is it to rebuild when you have a massive quarterback contract? But this is me. I am, draft picks, get draft picks, do the Cowboys, Herschel Walker move, trade, get as much as you possibly can, start all over. Just build the whole thing from scratch. And I realize it's hard to find quarterbacks, but it's becoming easier and easier. This is becoming a quarterbacks league where it is a possible thing. And this is not about my own vested interest in them possibly trading him.
It doesn't seem like you're interested in this at all.
No, this is not something I've stayed up nights thinking about and penned letters to Janice McNair about. This is just me talking. But no, really, it's just one of those things where, and again, in my letters to Janice, I have probably said the sentence of, listen, would you rather have a very unhappy Deshaun Watson or a very happy Jacoby Brissett? Think it out. You can talk about it, talk about it with your ownership. He's going to prey on it in the offices, I guess, is their new methodology for things. So, that's the way to solve it all. So I really like where they're going.
Okay, before Josh turns this into an Indianapolis Colts podcast, the Senior Bowl, guys, I just thought, it was one. Okay, here's my first takeaway is I'm surprised Kellen Mond doesn't suck as bad as I thought Kellen Mond sucked. And it was only a half, but it was actually the first time I watched Kellen Mond play football and think, I don't get it. Like, why is he the quarterback? Like, I actually kind of saw that he could be a decent quarterback. And now, I don't think he's going to be a decent NFL quarterback. He played against other people, and he did well. And it was shocking to me because I'd never seen that before. And then the other thing is, God, the offensive and defensive lines were such a stalemate. It was brutal to watch that thing.
Oh, you did more than me. I didn't watch that shit.
Yeah, same. I think
I never watched the game itself.
Yeah,
I never watched the game. Yep.
But I watched it because Ramondre Stevenson was playing, because Creed Humphrey was playing, and Ramondre Stevenson really didn't do shit. So you didn't really miss anything. I mean, like, there's literally nothing for us to talk about
honestly,
the Senior Bowl other than
the
the practices are really what matters. And
sure,
I mean, that's where everybody. I mean, and obviously Ramondre Stevens had a very good week of practices. Trey Brown had a good week of practices. Trey Norwood had like one pass breakup in the game, but it didn't get embarrassed. Anything that I remembered seeing. So overall, I think you didn't hear a lot about Adrian Ely during the week. But everybody else, you kind of heard bits and pieces that were positive, and I think Creed probably more than anyone had a lot of positive things come out about him. So I think it was good for everyone, and I think if you question Trey Brown and leaving for the NFL, like, yeah, I mean, it's time. He's getting his shit now. It was surprising to see that he was officially 5'9". But I guess it's not surprising if you think back on it. It's just that we haven't been able to stand next to these guys for a year now. So you kind of forget if somebody's really 5'9" or if they're 5'11".
Yeah. I think and Kerry, to be honest, I read some good buzz on Adrian Ely. It sounded like he I think not only in practices, but I feel like I had read some stuff where maybe he'd had some good meetings, stuff like that had come off pretty well, and some of those things. So,
and I didn't say I heard anything bad. I just didn't hear much at all. On either way.
Yeah, I mean, like I wouldn't say like, oh, he jumped around or anything, but I think he kind of built on, because everybody I've listened to, Daniel Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks, and they had Jim Nagy on at one point, and I would think I was listening to a different podcast. I think it was Gabe and those guys, Gabe and Teddy, but they were talking to Nagy, and he mentioned Ely having a nice junior year, and I think that's correct. Like it was, he really toward the end of the year, I thought he came on. I thought he played his best game of his career in that Florida game. So he's building momentum at the right time. But I will say, I think you're dead on, Kerry, about Trey Brown. Like it. We all kind of were like, oh, I don't know about that. But, hey, he's taken the opportunity he's given and had a great week. I mean, I think if anybody dominated those first 2 days of practice, the guy you were hearing the most about from all sorts of NFL guys was Trey Brown. I mean, he seemed like he really made a big impression.
And then, pro day, we'll see how that works out, whether we can even go to it, if it's all done on Zoom. There's going to be some type of combine. Like it's weird on the combine thing because I saw what Trey Norwood had thrown out there. It was like, maybe we'll ask you to come to Indianapolis for some interviews. But it still looks like they're leaving it up to, the players to have their schools or be at a combine that somebody is hosting. And we all said Trey Brown, if he runs the 40, it'll be impressive. And that'll do as much to help himself. But for him to go out there and practice well and look good in one-on-ones, he's actually put himself ahead of where I thought he might be. So I think
does Trey Brown really need to go out and put a 40 time out? I think him being able to show that he can cover guys is probably more important. And he did that at the Senior
Yeah, but
Bowl.
you know how it goes, Eddie. You put up a big 40 time, and people lose their shit, and that's all they
True.
I mean, no matter what your career is, if you put up a 4.3, people are like, well, shit, we got to take a chance on that guy. Like, his film might not say it, but he ran a 4.3. Like,
it always surprises me when people are surprised by fast people that have, basically that's kind of been their thing, and then they're surprised that they're fast. It's like, well, yeah, that's why people said that.
yeah, but there you got to admit, like, when we were out there at that Under Armour thing, and he was running that thing, and you saw him coming down the straightaway, you were like, shit, he's real fast. Like, he's a different kind of fast.
Yeah, and that's when I decided that he's very fast. Like, I don't need to see a 40 time.
And I mean, that was just watching him run. But, it's very, very seldom do you just watch a guy run, just a race and go, shit, he is fast. And, like, you didn't need a timer to tell you. You're just like, because I remember I took pictures and there were guys, like, with their jaws, on the floor, like, watching him like, shit, look at that guy go. It was impressive.
Well, remember who the two guys were alongside with him. Didn't help their college.
Was it Robert Barnes and
Broyles?
And Broyles, oh, yeah.
Well, you almost want to be like, send Chris Platt's 40 time out and then just show the game from Baylor in the 2019 Big 12.
Yeah.
Like, his low was 4.42 and I ran him down from behind. Like, you don't have to say a lot more than that. But you're right. I mean, like, if you have a trait like Trey Brown has in speed, man, show it every time you can. Like, Trey Brown should come out of the locker room at a dead sprint in Mobile. Like, he should have just been like, look, watch me run. Watch me do this. Like, just because, I mean, it's something.
It's like Ron Burgundy. Everybody come see how fast I am.
Yeah, like, I mean, if you have a trait that shines like his, or, if you're 6'7", like, walk into small rooms as often as you possibly can. Like, just make sure everybody is very, very aware that you have a unique skill that most people don't have.
Maybe get someone, like get your agent to position an assistant with like a stack of papers that as he runs by, they just go flying from the wind.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
That would be a perfect one. Yeah. Or like he needs like a tumbleweed near him, like, and he just runs past it and it starts rolling down the street. That'd be amazing.
He did so well with coverage. Now he can spend this next month and a half perfecting how to run a 40, because we all know there's an art to it. That if you're fast but you don't know how to do it, you might be 4 or 5 when really you could be like a 4.3 kid.
I'll bet he goes. I bet 4.36, something like that.
That's money compared to like
that. Oh, that's huge
4,
money.
4.7, right? I mean, doesn't feel like a big difference, but it would be.
Well, because I mean, he's going to be drafted as one of these nickel guys, and usually the nickel guys, that's they're kind of quick, not so much fast. Trey's plenty quick, and he can run with literally anybody in the league. So he's got a chance to make a lot of money if he goes out and really puts out a big time.
And by the way, it wasn't announced by Riley yesterday when Pro Day is. I thought we might get that, but that was one thing that wasn't covered.
Yeah, I thought, the most significant thing, just moving forward is the timeline of late March for the start of spring camp and late April for a spring game, which we don't know, what I would imagine it would be essentially kind of the same as the season, a certain percentage of capacity. Maybe a little bit more by that time. I don't know. We'll see how the vaccine rollouts go. And that's the other thing. Like, OU's pushing ticket sales pretty hard for next season, but I haven't even talked to Joe C. to say, do you have a cap on it? Do you just sell as much as you can and then dial back afterward? But yeah, I mean, there will be a spring game, and I would assume that people will be able to go to it. But it's good to know that they're already making plans for that. And of course, you have all these new guys checking in. My God, is it like the new thing? Like, I get so many alerts of players doing Instagram live videos now. Like, that's the new thing now. And they're never worth watching, by the way.
Dude, and the thing I hate the most is they can see me. I'm like, oh, this is creepy. I don't want to be here. But if you do something that people are going to talk about, I have to be here.
Like, I literally just kept going into Ramondre Stevenson's before he announced just to watch people ask him, Are you coming back? Are you coming back? Are you? And then he announced, and he immediately did a live just sitting in his car, and it was still a bunch of people. Are you going to come back? Are you going to come? Like they hadn't even heard. They just went.
They were going to convince him otherwise. All right.
What I love is when the rare occasion when I get a call, it only happens with recruits because they know, like Cody Jackson one time was like, "What's up, Josh?" I'm like, "I need to go. Like this feels dirty. I got to get out of here."
Yeah. Well, you're big time.
Going back to the late April spring game.
Yeah.
That could be recruiting centric because if a contact period starts April 15th. That would mean you could bring recruits in for the spring game, and that's why you wouldn't move it up to the traditional first or second weekend of April, because we'll still be in that dead period. It's just not set in stone yet that at April 15th then will become a quiet period where recruits could visit campus again.
This is why I love Bob on our staff. He thinks about this kind of stuff. Like, I'm so locked in, like, day to day. Like, I'm thinking about Raleek Brown tomorrow. I can't even go any farther than that. And Bob's like, this could open up this avenue. And then, like, 6 months down the road, I'm like, Bob, you're a genius. Like, I love that you're thinking about that. I don't have the brain capacity to hold those sort of things.
Bob doesn't have anything else to do right now. He's you know, he's got he's got the kid, he's got the dogs, and
basketball.
He's got basketball that's kind
of. I got a top 10 basketball.
You got a top 10. Well,
lap.
They were top 10.
Are we going to talk about this? I'm going to go tend to my dogs. I'll let you guys talk basketball. I'll be back.
Go try and kill another one.
Okay. Oh, that's mean.
Oh, what? You did try to kill
you were worried about Tiffany being upset with you, you know, about we talked about last night. She will hear this and be very unhappy. You're going to hear about this. Our HR department is going to get a complaint. This is happening.
Yeah, she can just call me and complain. Complain to the HR department about me. That's fine.
Your employee, Carrie Murdoch?
Yeah. Oh, it's like when people get mad at Twitter and they're like, I want to know who to talk to at Sooner Scoop. I was like, I own it, bitch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how many times are you going to fire me, Carrie? Has that happened yet? Or is that we're still working on that? Like, it's just this, like, and it's the dynamic the way we've always been. That's fine. Like, everyone perceives you as like pure owner, and that's fine. Like, I really don't care about it, but I'm like, guys, that's not the way this setup works. Like, Carrie just keeps the trains running. Yeah. So yeah, like it's fine. Like that's all good.
Yeah.
Yep.
He can't fire me, and I can't fire him.
So we're stuck to each other. We're like a really awful marriage.
Josh has made it very clear. I can buy him out for a ridiculous amount of money, and that's
absolutely
the only way that I can get rid of him.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We all know I'll whore myself out with no real problem.
But look, spring football, all that. I mean, I think it's going to be nuts when visits can finally happen again, because there's going to be all these kids, and not just official visits, but you're going to have sophomores and freshmen. I mean, people that just want to go visit campuses. Like, you're almost going to have to hire an additional wing of staff to support all these people that want to come visit college campuses.
And maybe that's how Lincoln Riley gets his extra support staff. Like, he can work this into being a functional thing going forward. But yeah, I mean, once this opens, I mean, guys, I'm used to 10, 12 visit people weekend, stuff like that. And I mean, and that's not,
it's going to be like if junior days every week.
Yep.
And you're talking good junior days. Like you're every kid in the country is going to be so jacked to be able to get out and take visits that you're just going to have loaded. So can you guys even imagine what Alabama's junior days would look like in April? It would be like the rivals 5 stars would just be at Alabama. Like the whole group would just go.
The COVID testing will be in, or like how they handle that is going to be curious to see.
Well, you think they would handle it about like they handle school right now. They take their temperatures when they come in. They have to wear a mask. Like, I don't know why it's so much different than what 17-year-olds are doing literally in every school across the country right now. I don't understand why that's deemed so different.
You could maybe do something like where you say, look, you can only bring one family member into the facility, but if you want to bring your family on the trip to go tour the campus, that's fine. But we're only going to have so many people in the facility at one time. Of course, you'd want to have mom and dad come in. I mean,
And you could do it where you staggered it. Like, okay, we've got offensive guys in here from 10:30 to 11:30, and they're going to go out in the field, and they're going to go, do this, that. We're going to show them some academics, and then we're going to have the defensive guys come. You can do things to break it up a little bit, which I think are better anyway. Lincoln Riley doesn't want to be engaging 40 guys at one time. He wants to have one-on-one time with the 5-10 guys he's really serious and trying to push for.
By the way, if you do want to get rid of Josh, you could also write letters to the Colts on behalf of him to be their head scout.
Yes.
That would get you out of here as well.
I talked about my letter writing campaign to Janice McNair. Every time I send something to Chris Ballard with hearts on it, it just gets returned. I don't understand. I have Laney draw me something really pretty at the top, and then I send a letter in pink ink, and nobody ever writes me back. I try not to take it personally, but it stings.
They're probably just like, who the f*** writes letters? Send an email, weirdo.
I was going to say that. Josh is writing letters?
I'm putting my 32 cents towards my U.S. stamp, sir. I'm doing my part to reinvigorate the economy, so I'm helping.
I think stamps cost a lot more than that now.
30? Yeah,
okay.
what are you talking about?
Are they way more than that? I buy forever stamps. The only time I ever buy, I buy forever stamps.
Well, that's
so
what they did.
Idea.
They jacked up the prices, but then they said your past stamps count now. You don't have to buy the little 3-cent add-on like you used to.
Oh, that would suck.
Now who's the olds? Me.
Hey,
I went through it a couple of years too. That stupid 3-cent add-on.
So now that we're completely off the rails, we're talking about stamps.
Is Eddie even still here?
I don't know.
No,
I think he probably left.
No.
How are you, Eddie? What's on your mind today? Sleep?
No, nothing really. Just hanging out.
Boycotting? Are you boycotting the podcast?
No.
Okay.
I just have nothing to add on stamps. I can't remember the last time that I bought stamps.
Here we go. We're the olds.
I haven't bought stamps in a long time either. I haven't mailed. Last thing I've had to mail was just checks to people, and it takes me a long time to get around to doing that shit. Josh can attest to you. If you ask me to mail something, wait about 2 months.
There are a few, and it's funny, you work with somebody for long enough, and Carrie, you and I have been working together for about 15 years, 14 years, something like that now. You learn, there are things I'm not asking Carrie to do that. I'm going to do that myself, or I'm going to find some workaround because,
Josh
and
loves
same
mailing
for you.
Shit. He loves mailing shit. It's ridiculous.
I will mail anything, and we had to have the part fixed for the pod. I got that out. As soon as I had the stuff, it was out in 2 days.
I will drive my ass to Houston and back rather than to go to the post office and mail stuff.
We should have had you just post UPS on the side of your car.
So, okay, let's talk a little bit about Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch yesterday. Bob, you've written a couple of note stories already. Eddie, let's start with you, though. What did you most take away from Lincoln Riley yesterday in his meeting with the media?
You're probably not going to want to hear what I have to say.
Well, it sounds very much like I do.
Well, it doesn't sound like we're going to hear anything from you then today.
I thought it was a waste of time, to be honest.
Because no one signed?
Yeah, we already kind of knew everything that was out there.
But, you wanted to hear him talk about the transfers and the portal and how he approached that. And
did we, though? Everything that was out there, I didn't think that we really learned anything yesterday.
All right, Bob, what did you take away? Because you obviously wrote 2 stories.
It was just interesting to hear his logic about the portal and how it all.
But if they would have hit on guys in December, they probably don't go there, right? So I kind of
who would they not have taken? Who would they not have taken? They would have taken Chandler or Micah Bowens to replace Chandler Morris. They would have taken Wanye Morris. There's no way. No way that was tit for tat. Keyshawn Lawrence didn't replace anybody, so obviously they would have taken him. I can kind of get there on the Congo kid. Maybe that's one scholarship heavy, but even he's a senior, so it's not like you're not any risk there. When you think about it, I don't know why they would have taken him. Eric Gray's the only one that I'm like, yeah, okay, if you get Kamar Wheaton, you probably don't take Eric Gray. That's really the only one I can come up with. That's just no doubt kind of obvious. I think you're just being negative, Eddie. I think that's what's happening here.
I think that, it's just in terms of, it just stayed with the plan that they kept, which I think we all agreed was a good one, which is don't go chasing, C-list or D-list guys just to get bodies in there. So it looks like you're going to have a bigger recruiting class than you did. And they stuck to their guns. They didn't go, like Lincoln said, I mean, that was what was interesting to me. He said, we didn't send out a single NLI today. Like, there was nothing they didn't send one to Kamar Wheaton. They didn't send one to some plan B guy. They didn't, give a preferred walk-on, go ahead and throw a scholarship his way. They didn't do any of that. I thought that was pretty interesting. Like, that just showed you how they felt they were, all across the board.
There were a couple of shots fired by Lincoln. One, maybe we'll get into, was your tampering question. You had some good ones there, but the other one that I thought stood out was, who cares about winning signing day? It's about building your roster. And it's like, I don't care that we're not being talked about today like Bama is and like some other schools are. We've built our roster for 2021 and beyond, because a lot of these kids that are transferring aren't like fifth-year seniors. They're going to be around a while, and they're going to help us get to that next level that we keep trying to get to.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, it's nice for Lincoln to say, but everybody cares. Alabama cares. You really care if you're being honest about it, Lincoln. Like, you want to have the number one class in the country. You do. And, I mean, when he signed 3 5-star receivers, everybody celebrated that. That was good for your program. It's good for your program when you have the number one quarterback, because you got Mario Williams and you got Jalil Farouk and you had Cody Jackson regardless. But when you sign great players, then other great players follow. That Alabama's proven that. So, that's kind of like, it's kind of the new we met our needs to me, to say who cares about, winning signing day. You want to make a splash. You always, I mean, as much as that program promotes itself.
I don't think you care. Like, December was good for OU. I think he just didn't care that no one was talking about him yesterday, because they didn't have anyone in the running for anything.
Yeah, but still, I mean, like, that's free advertising. Why would you not want Twitter, guys like you and I, Bob, retweeting everything, oh, this kid's down to the last minute and OU gets, I don't know, pick your example from yesterday, Tywan Malone, the big D lineman from New Jersey. Of course you want to be there when some 2022 kid is watching that and is like, ooh, yeah, that guy's really good. I want to play with him. Like, it's free advertising. Of course you want to be involved in that. There's nothing wrong with that reality.
And I think that, well, the thing about it is, they did not have a successful second signing period. I mean, that's just the flat truth. They lost out on Kamar Wheaton. They didn't get Tristan Lee. I mean, they did not finish strong in an area where they had a chance to finish strong.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, the worst.
They misread the situation often. That's what it sounds like.
Just like Josh.
Oh, that dude needs to be fired.
And we come full circle.
He's the worst.
Josh being fired.
No, yeah, guys, I mean, they're just, and people are like, well, how did this happen? And I mean, don't get me wrong, if there's some element of you've got to be better to that. I mean, but at the same time, guys, how is Oklahoma supposed to really read Tristan Lee? Like, through a Zoom chat? Who here has done a Zoom chat and is like, you know what? I'm always impressed with how well I get my message across through the grainy screen, and I feel like I really understand where they're coming from and I'm coming from, and it all makes sense. That's not really the world we're living in. Like, so if you can't be in person, there's going to be things that get lost in like the context gets a little shaken sometimes. So I think it's, again, everybody else is dealing with it. So I'm not saying that that's a total excuse, but it is, you understand how these things can happen because you're just not able to, I was talking to a source the other day, like, you can't sit here and have that conversation face to face with him or his mom or his head coach or whatever, and really feel like you've sussed out what is happening. Like, well, I know what the situation is here. You don't have that. And so Oklahoma and everybody else kind of has to deal with that, and you're going to have some misreads. And it wasn't just Oklahoma, guys. This happened all over the place. A lot of schools lost guys they thought they had.
I'm trying to see the origin of sussed out. It's been a long time since I've heard somebody use that.
Well, you're welcome.
It's British informal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What do you hate America?
Well, I mean, I'm Scottish.
Like
I think it.
So, yeah.
Let's make this clear. That last name is not Irish, people. You want to upset Josh, that's a good way to get started. So that is a Scottish last name, and I say things from the island. You know, that's what I'm about.
To inspect or investigate so as to gain more knowledge. Usually used without. That's sussed.
I mean, my nickname could be Sus then. I mean, that's just what I'm doing. Although I think that turns into suspect in the new vernacular. So then I'm suspect. So that probably works both ways.
You know who else uses sussed out? Morgan Wallen. I'm just saying.
I don't know who that is.
Really?
I knew Josh wouldn't know.
You guys were talking. Let's not get into that. But I saw his name and I was like, I don't know, or her. I don't know who that is.
It's him.
Okay.
Country singer.
He does have long hair.
Yeah, that's not going to be up my alley. I don't know anything about that person. Oh, but God, that is some hair now.
It takes a lot to get canceled by every single radio station and country music television platform, like overnight. So,
wow.
I mean,
easy gateway, dropping an N-bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
hey, I'm feeling pretty good about myself at the moment. Then screw that guy.
It's been a while since somebody's been able to cancel someone. I mean, there was a lot of built up cancel energy in the universe.
Yeah, I think this
For
was
him, too, from the Saturday Night Live.
Oh, yeah, he had the Saturday Night Live. He was partying after an Alabama game on Campus Corner. And, God, you saw the post-celebration after they won it.
Yeah, I don't fault him for that at all.
But he couldn't go on Saturday Night
That was
Live
probably a pretty good move on his part.
because he had to quarantine, so his record company wasn't too happy with him.
Well, they dropped his ass yesterday, so they're not working with him anymore.
Hey, want to remind you guys, it's Valentine's Day coming up. If you want to get something for someone you know, or maybe the wife is looking for a gift, what do you want for Valentine's Day? Tell her you want Dead Soxy, because right now Dead Soxy has a Valentine's Day special going on. You get $25. If you spend $25, you get free shipping. And there's varying tier. You can get up to $35 off an order of $120. You can get $15 off an order of $60. But here's here's the great deal. You have the Valentine's Day special going on, and you, a Sooner Scoop listener, can also add your Sooner Scoop discount on top of the Valentine's Day discounts. If you use the promo code BOOMER, you get an additional 30% off your order just using that code. So, Valentine's Day special, Dead Soxy, great socks. Eddie and I both love them, wear them, and all kinds of different styles. You know them. A lot of you guys out there have got them. You love them. Just go to deadsoxy, DEADSOXY.com, and enter that code BOOMER to get an additional 30% off the already low prices from their Valentine's Day special. Eddie, do you have someone in mind for Valentine's Day?
No, I have myself, and that's the best part, because if you're a single guy, you could get all your socks that you need for the rest of the summer on one day just by going to deadsoxy.com. I mean, I know that there's guys out there that could go do this for themselves in the name of Valentine's Day.
Self-care is what you're saying.
There you go. Exactly.
Exert your self-care on yourself using Dead Soxy for Valentine's Day. And remember, guys, stay soxy. Okay, I guess we should talk about Bookie, because I'm not really bookied out. I I've fought with fans, one in particular, and it's just one of those things. It's like I'm trying to be more reasonable with people, like, trying to figure out, why certain people are, so anti-mask and others. Like, I'm trying not to just let it drive me crazy. But it's still like it's this kind of like angry dude syndrome where you can't talk about Bookie without someone just coming at you. Like I was just talking about this morning on the radio, and some dude hit me up on Twitter. He added me at Twitter. He's like, "You sound like you're about to cry because of Bookie's leaving." Like, why is that necessary? Like, we've all shit on Bookie as a player. Somebody reminded me of that. Like, you guys crap on him on the pod all the time. Yes, we do, because we crap on him as a player. But, like,
I think it's because there's, like, this built up, there was this idea that he was going to come in and become some kind of Jim Thorpe winner. And then as it turned out that, the first couple of years, they were awful defensively. And it's like you can justify being mean to somebody about it because they didn't meet your expectations almost. And because he's so out there. Like, I mean, he's a very visible figure.
Yeah, he's got the hair, the sledgehammer, which we talked a lot about. But, and he gets into fights and gets penalties. And then he had the one play, against LSU that was just awful. And then everything else from that point, he had like Greg McElroy going after him on a broadcast against TCU, and then they called a penalty on TCU, but then he had the OSU thing. But those are, and then the Iowa State game, like those are, but the Iowa State thing was simply a guy that's 5'8" going against a guy that's 6'6" in a jump ball in the end zone, which, you got to ask yourself, why is that even happening schematically? Like, I can't really fault Bookie for that game. And he did have, I looked this up because I got in a fight with Carson Cunningham on Twitter, which I'm fine. I don't have any beef with Carson. We were just fighting on Twitter. I mean, he did get a personal foul in that game, but it ended up with Iowa State punting the ball away like 2 plays later. I mean, the LSU game, and they were already getting their asses kicked. That game was over. It was definitely over after he got kicked out. They were never going to win that game, so it's not like he cost them.
They were going to win the game, but it was 21-7?
Yes.
Get off the field there. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it was just it was one of the dumbest penalties I've ever seen of a player. It really was. But to act like he didn't make some plays, that he wasn't a good player most of the time, that's not right. I mean, there were some good things about Bookie as a player. Did they get better when Trey Norwood took over the nickel? Yes, they did. And he did take over. So he's leaving. Just let him leave. Why do you have to continue to go after the guy? Like, that to me is like, that's some personal bullshit. You've made it personal. Like, he harmed you? He made your life miserable? No, I think your life was already miserable before you started adding him on Twitter, dick.
Because you could say the same thing about Charleston Rambo. Like, he didn't meet the expectations as a player, but when he hit the portal, there was none of this, venom being spewed. I mean, it feels like the same situation.
I mean, there was some venom. Like, on our boards, people, like, especially in game threads, when he was on the field, there was a lot of venom his way, but it kind of ended there. Like, people just didn't want him on the field over other guys. And Bookie was the same way. And eventually, he's leaving, but now for some reason, people still go after Bookie and still have to get their, extract their pound of flesh for whatever reason. But they didn't do that to Rambo. Maybe they did, and I just don't notice it as much.
That's where I'm at. Like, I'm not one that thinks Bookie, like, was always unfairly. I mean, I don't know how I want to say this. I don't think he was unfairly criticized for his play, but there is such a venom that almost is personal, and that's the part I don't understand. Like, I don't think he was a particularly good player. I said I thought I said during one of our pods this year that the whole leadership conversation that people kept trying to have, and Grinch included, everybody included, I never understood it. I couldn't understand what they were talking about when he consistently made boneheaded mistakes. That's not what a leader does to me. But at the same time, it went beyond that. It wasn't just, oh, he's not good at football. It was like, we hate this guy. And why? Like, I mean, even like you go back to like, yeah. I mean, like compared to some of the guys in the years past, like Kerry, you mentioned on Twitter, Tom Ward. Tom Ward became the reason for all bad things at one point in time, but it never felt like it went to that level. Like it never went to, I hate him on like just a human level. I don't like him. And with Bookie, it felt that way.
I mean, Josh, I had to take a call from his dad because somebody told him that he should commit suicide after the Cincinnati game. Yeah,
I remember that. And his dad at times would get unhappy with me. Like, I mean, I remember all of that. When I ran into Tom last summer, I was like, oh, God, is this going to be okay? It's the first time I'd really seen him since he was playing. And Tom was great. Tom was totally fine. Yeah. So it was all good. But it was just one of those things where you're like, I mean, there was. I mean, and there was some criticism. And I think some of it for Wart was fair. But at the same time, like I said, with Bookie, I think it's the criticism of him as a player, I think is valid. But it became more than that. It was something else altogether.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, Tom Ward, remember, he left early, and he got to go to the Combine, but you knew he wasn't going to get drafted. And you were just like, that was kind of one of the first guys that you started seeing players leaving, even though they weren't going to be drafted or drafted high, just because they wanted to get out of college and go give it a chance.
Yep.
And I don't know if some of that was because of the way that the fans treated him. But, I mean, we know Brent Venables had been upset about, things that were being said about him. And I don't, I'm not trying to, go on a rant against fans because fans are going to be fans. I mean, they're going to cheer you. They're going to boo when you don't play well. If you don't play well continually, like let's say if you have a career like Justin Broyles has had, fans turned against him, fans turned against Chance Sylvie, and they just weren't good enough. And they just you have to realize that if you're going to play at a place like Oklahoma, you just don't like it when it seems to be more than that. And with Bookie, it seems to be more than that. And I could see, if I don't know how often people DM him or add him or whatever, but for people to be that brazen, just to contact a kid directly and tag him and say mean shit, like that's over the line. That's ridiculous.
If he's leaving and that's what you want, like, wouldn't it be like, hey man, like, why would you have any venom? You're getting what you wanted. Yeah. Like, why would you be hostile about that?
On the flip side of all of that is just I was basically a little surprised when the news broke on Tuesday. I kind of thought that we had moved on from that rumor that was out there mid-December.
And I think Lincoln Riley was surprised by it. And the fact that he left it open to say, I hope he comes back, was almost like he was trying, because you can just go to compliance. You don't have to talk to the coaches. Like, that's part of
it very much felt like that was a situation that Lincoln was almost, I don't know if bombarded would be the right word, but I don't think that they had talked.
Yeah. I think that they probably talked after it came out that he was in the portal. And that was the one thing that was most surprising is Lincoln said, I hope he comes back. I hope he reconsiders. I hope he,
And we've seen that a bunch. I mean, if you follow the Rivals transfer portal Twitter account, so many kids withdraw their name every single day. Yeah. So it's not like that's out of the realm of something that couldn't happen.
Guys, is there there's a part of me that thinks, and I don't want to, addition by subtraction is such a cliche, but there's a part of me that thinks, like Kerry was talking earlier, like, it's not Bookie's fault that the way the scheme plays, he's having to guard Charlie Kolar one-on-one in a jump ball situation. Like, that's not on Bookie. Like, and I'm not saying, OU's got to fix everything. That's just the way it goes, and the way that defense is designed is not to have a 5'8" nickelback. That's not the ideal for what they're wanting to do there. But at the same time, you also get that every coach on the planet loves a player he's comfortable with, knows what he's getting, knows his, whatever the guy's faults are, I know what his faults are. I know what his problems are. And as a coach, that makes you feel comfortable. We've got ample evidence to say that's the case. Do you feel like if a guy, if he was to go and he, goes wherever he might go, do you feel like after some initial bumps in the road, OU might be better for it because it's going to force them to play someone who does better fit their ideal of what they want to be, and they're forced to go through the growing pains?
Yeah.
Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Like Cradell should definitely be someone who this should make him better. We should find out who this player really is. Is he someone that's going to make a difference, or is he just someone that's going to be there for depth?
Yeah, it's hard to say. They just have to get better, be better, and is Key Lawrence going to be a guy that makes them better instantly? I think maybe so, but you still need to build some depth in your safety position. That's the main thing. You got youth in Bryson Washington who didn't get to play that much this year, and you got two guys back there still coming back with experience. So nickel and safety, those are two positions that really, if you look at all the positions on defense, has the least amount of depth, the least amount of quality depth.
Like I said, that's kind of where it gets fun, though, because they have recruited well or decently enough at those positions to be able to, let's see what you guys got.
Which makes me think that Billy Bowman, if they could fit him into a nickel situation, they'd love to do that.
I feel like, and you guys, I haven't had a chance to listen to all of that from yesterday. I'd love to hear your takes on where all that came out with the Bowman stuff, because I feel like Oklahoma wants Billy Bowman to be happy, and they're going to give him a legit shot at receiver if that's what makes him happy. But I feel like if you could put a truth serum in the majority of that staff, they're like his best futures on the defensive side. Like he could make an early impact for us as a defender.
Well, what Grinch said, because I actually transcribed that question. What Grinch said about Bowman is he only talks to him as if he's playing defense. He doesn't care that he wants to play both ways. He's like, as I was recruiting you, I talked to you like you're defense, and now you're here. I'm talking to you as if you're a defensive player. Simmons was a little more diplomatic about it, I thought.
Yeah, but you could tell both of them want him to play on their side of the ball. Coaches just want the best players. And it's probably, having Lincoln as your head coach, your offensive coordinator, you wonder how much he's going to help Alex Grinch win that battle. There's a big announcement coming on Friday. And then, by the way, Big Cat Bryant still has not made a decision.
Still lingering.
Still out there. Josh, I know you haven't said that anything has changed from what you've heard and what you've kind of put out on the board and everything so far, but have you heard any updates on when this might go down?
No, what I was told is it's still going through admissions. It sounds like they're that far down the road. This isn't a deal where, something's changed. It feels like what he's hoping is this is going to come off and then get it, he'll announce it once he's admitted or whatever. That's my
which
general feel. Yeah.
Yeah, which is different than what we usually see. Normally a kid announces his commitment, and then you wait a week or so till they're enrolled, and it seems like he's waiting for it to be official, and then he'll come out with it.
Which, Bob, if you look at the people search, as we do when guys are trying to enroll, kind of like what Eric Gray did. Eric Gray was almost in there instantaneously. So I think maybe he went through the same process. And so that's what maybe Brian is doing here. But like I said, I've not heard anything had changed. I think everyone thought he was going to announce last weekend, maybe Saturday or Sunday, and then it just didn't happen. And I think he just kind of said, okay, let's not. I think maybe with the Tennessee thing, he was like, let me just get this done, and then I'll come back to the announcement. He's a senior in college. He may not feel the same way about that stuff as the high school, the freshman or sophomore in college that still are reliving the high school days when they get to make the big announcement and have have we seen any videos? Have there been any video announcements yet on the transfer portal? I'm trying to think of one.
The only one that I could think of was Tate Martell making the video to announce the transfer portal.
God.
To Josh's point,
he had a behind-the-scenes video.
Announced.
I'm sorry, Bob, I missed that. What'd you say?
To Josh's point, Congo didn't even announce. He still hasn't announced. We just know that he's at OU. He's enrolled. Lincoln's talking about him. He never said anything in a public setting.
Well, because I had messaged him about a week before, before he showed up in OU's enrolled, and I messaged him. He never got back to me. And then the day the news broke, I kind of hit him back up. I was like, "Hey, man, heard that this went through, whatever." And he's like, "Hey, man, really sorry. Just didn't want to do anything until all the, the letters were crossed and I's were dotted and all that stuff." And I was like, "Okay, fine." So I mean, it's just. A lot of guys just don't see it that way. And you would totally get it with Congo because he was a guy that came out of IMG, watching all of his buddies sign, do all these big ceremonies, and he had to walk on at Texas A&M. So, I mean, like, it's just you even get it if he was like, no, I'm going to have my moment here. But he just didn't do it that way.
Well, he can replace Dane Saltarelli, his former walk-on from IMG.
You got it.
How pissed are you as a parent if you send your kid down to IMG? Like, even if IMG's covering you, because a lot of those kids pay their way at IMG. So how pissed are you if your kid goes to IMG, you pretty much don't see him for a couple years of high school, and then you're like, wait, we're still paying for college? Like, I thought that was the whole idea of IMG, is we were going to go get a scholarship out of this deal.
He's got one now.
I think now, where is he now?
Western Kentucky.
Oh man,
scholarship.
Even before, was it who did the big portal article? Was it Bill Connolly or was it
Ross?
It was Ross
Dellinger.
Okay. Bill Connolly was just tweeting about it, but like you saw that Western Kentucky, and that was kind of what I was asking Lincoln about yesterday because Western Kentucky. Like you would see their recruiting director's name on every list from every kid. Like you could tell they were talking to all these kids before they were in the portal. Like it just looked like clear tampering. And I'm not saying any of these other teams are doing it, but SMU is into the transfer portal. Texas State's been really into it. I think that's the thing you're going to watch for some of these, Florida, the FAUs, the South Floridas, like who's really going to start taking advantage of the portal in Florida, who's going to do it in California, because this has become the new tactic for a lot of schools. And I mean, it
Texas
really.
State,
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't think Texas State signed a 2021 high school recruit. I thought I saw that yesterday.
Wow.
that they're going all transfer portal.
That is
What,
crazy.
would that even be on Oklahoma's radar, though, just as far as being threatening? I mean, is it threatening?
No, yeah.
Like, why the f*** should they even worry about something like that?
I just think you always
As far as
worry.
tampering goes.
You always worry about somebody, putting something in their ear, and maybe they're not so worried about them tampering directly with the players, but maybe with the people that train them when they go home. You know, if they put something in their ear and they tell them they're unhappy, and they say, well, I've talked to these schools, and they say if, you look at a transfer, they'll take you without question. Like, it's just, I think it's one of those things you worry that they just kind of wear kids down when, they're already just kind of going through maybe some homesickness and frustrations of not getting as much playing time as they want or being down on the depth chart. Like, it's basically just preying on kids that, going through the normal stuff that they would normally just work their way through and be fine and end up starting and having the career they wanted to, but reaching them during that time when they're kind of vulnerable to, making decisions that aren't always the best for them.
Wow. And if that's the case, then it's going to get even worse when the NIL stuff is passed.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would think if the NIL stuff gets passed and you're I don't know if that'll affect it because we're not talking about the same type of person. Like the NILs are going to be for the really good players. Like they're not going to be for the third team safety. I mean, they're not going to make any money.
You could go to whoever, the starter at Oklahoma or Texas or whatever, if you're Texas State, say you get a good deal with a good booster, and they could give somebody more money than maybe an OU or, like, I don't know.
Yeah. I got to think, though, once COVID is done, all this, transfer madness is going to slow down. Like, the NCAA is going to have to go back to saying, you have to get a waiver if you're going to transfer.
But it's going to go nuts because people are going to transfer because of COVID because they didn't get to visit campus.
Yep. I think you'll see a lot of guys.
That's true.
This 2021 class could 2 years from now look very different than what it is. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that he's going to transfer by any means, but, I mean, it's stunning to hear Lincoln Riley say that the first time he ever met Nathan Rollins-Kabonga was last week when he got to campus.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's because he's from Oregon, and, I don't think he can actually go to Oregon right now.
I would assume the same was true of Mario Williams.
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna ask.
He didn't say that.
I was gonna ask Dennis Simmons about that yesterday, just about like, was that kind of one guy that you always kind of worried about because, he's out there kind of on an island and you can't visit him, he can't visit you. But then Barry Trammell asked about black coaches. I was like, yeah, I'm reading the room. I'm not going to ask any more questions. You can't ask about recruiting after someone talks about, black head coaches.
Isn't it Barry? I was going to say, isn't it Barry's responsibility to be like, hey, Mike, can I go late?
No, he was. I was going to be. Yeah, he went really late.
And okay.
I just said, look, if there's time for any more questions, I have one more. And so he was throwing me a bone. I was like, no, I'm done.
I'm out. I'm out. Good here. But good on you for reading the room there, Kerry. That's all we need is Soonerscoop.com.
Because I'm not stupid. That's that's step number one. Don't be stupid. And that's not. Bob will attest to this. Eddie can too. A lot of people can't say that on Zoom calls.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Yep.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit of recruiting. Big announcement coming on Friday. I know Josh is super fired up because he loves Friday evening commitment announcements on the West Coast, especially.
Not so much. For anybody that didn't pick up on your sarcasm, it's not my favorite thing. Looking at like a 6:30, 7 o'clock, which. For a guy on a Friday with 2 kids, I mean, what better do I have to do? So really excited about that. But hey, before, I get in trouble by doing something Kerry doesn't like. Raleek Brown, possible 5-star. Yeah, possible 5-star all-purpose back from, I almost said Stockton, California, but from Santa Ana, Mater Dei, the mega power, one of the 2 there in the Los Angeles area, that is a guy that is, and now that I've said Los Angeles area, I'm like, somebody's going to message me. It's outside of the greater Los Angeles area. God bless it. It's in Orange County. Fine, whatever.
Why don't you suss that out? All right.
There's nothing funnier than talking like high school areas and like trying to generalize it to someone that doesn't go to Los Angeles very often and is like, oh yeah, okay, it's in LA. Like, okay, I don't know where Santa Ana is, but hey, it's somewhere near Los Angeles. And then hearing somebody that's like local, that's like, hey man, that's not what we call it around here. Dude, I'm not from there. I don't know what you call it and I don't care. I'm just trying to give out people a general idea. 97% of people listening to this podcast don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, sorry. Got a little sidetrack there. Yeah, a little anger built up. Anyway, but yeah, this is a guy, and to be fair, you guys, not every day we do a podcast where we're talking about a recruit that everybody else in this pod has seen except for me. I'm the only one in this podcast that hasn't seen him live.
No, that's not true because Bob had to learn how to breastfeed that weekend.
Wow.
So breastfeed class.
Our 2 recruiting guys missed that. But yeah, hey, we got that going for us. Soonerscoop.com. So anyway,
we got Brock Vandegrift throwing it to him countless number of times.
Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting how many people got interested in recruiting that day and covering it and putting it out on Twitter. It was suddenly everybody was into big-time recruits watching Vandegrift and Brown throw to each other. But anyway.
And then there was, what's his name, the other quarterback that was there.
Ty Simpson.
Simpson,
Yes.
who sounds like he's about to announce probably to Clemson from what I'm hearing. But anyway, he is a guy that, everybody kind of is like, well, is he a running back? Is he a receiver? I think Oklahoma sees him as something they've never had before. I see him kind of like a Marquise Brown that they can give 5 or 6 carries a game to. Like they can do a lot of unique stuff with him. And
would you
like
say
I said,
that he compares to someone like maybe a Tyreek Hill, maybe a little bit more than Billy Bowman does?
Yes, I think that's a very apt comparison because he is very explosive with his speed, is strictly an offensive player, and is going to play running back or receiver. And, again, has elite speed. Kind of like we're talking about with Trey Brown. When you have a overriding trait, it should be obvious to anyone that, follows the sport even a little bit. So, yeah, Raleek Brown's a big-time guy. Really could, if it goes the way we all expect it will, and I've talked to people kind of on the, Southern California side of things. I've talked to people around Norman. It all sounds very confident. There's not a lot of, last-second angst here. It feels like this is going to go OU's way. Now, I think there is some conversation with the people around him. I think his family likes the Oklahoma idea. I think there's some other people around him that kind of would rather see him Pac-12, maybe USC, that kind of thing. So we'll have to see. This is certainly not one that I'm going to say the race is run. But the same time, I said the same thing about Mario Williams last year, and Mario Williams never really gave me any concern. I mean, there was never any big rumor that you thought, okay, this is imminent, something's going wrong here. So we'll see what happens. But, I mean, you add him
we
to
learned nothing from Tyson Ford. I mean, when, you start talking about mamas.
you don't
got you. I'm PTSD in a little bit here.
Don't fight the mamas.
This relationship. This is summer 2019. I mean, Brown knows what he needs to know.
Look,
I can't see it. A last second change.
I don't know that I've ever seen someone fall in love with OU like he did after he came to camp here.
Mm-hmm.
He just, constantly tweeted about Oklahoma. And you saw other players kind of jump on him and stuff. It was almost like they were including him in this class. It was, I've rarely seen someone, and that's the only analogy I have for it, just fall in love that hard with a school like he did with OU.
And then when Murray took over, like nothing slowed down. You're worried when DeMarco came.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, is he going to connect with Raleek, or are they going to fall off? And that never happened. That was my only concern. And okay, it's like it's still, even though there's always going to be those schools on the West Coast that are going to try to make a run. It just always felt like
I kind of felt
in the driver's seat.
like the same way with Mario Williams. Like he just fell hard for OU too, and he stuck it out.
Yep. And the thing, that was interesting to me, it felt like when everybody started to think like, oh, Raleek Brown might really be going to Oklahoma, it seemed like that was when Raleek Brown started like, oh, well, what about Alabama? Like you started hearing rumors like almost trying to make it interesting,
Yeah.
But, I never heard from anyone that I thought was like really reputable that like, oh, yeah, Alabama's for real here. Now, there's lots of time. Things can change, but it was always, from the people I talked to, it was always Oklahoma. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. But like I said, I think, guys, you talk about a start of a skill group in your 2022 class. Luther Burden, Raleek Brown, Talon Shetron, and Jordan Hudson, who I think is a little bit underrated. That's ridiculous. Now, you get those guys to go find you a quarterback, and then you go get those guys to find you a running back or two, because people are going to ask, and I guess I should clarify, I still think OU will take 2 running backs aside from Raleek Brown. I think that's what they'd like to do. I think they'd like to have Javonte Barnes from Las Vegas, and they'd like to have Gavin Sawchuk from Colorado. So if they could get those 2 guys, and like I said, right now I've got a forecast in for Gavin Sawchuk to Oklahoma, so I clearly think that's a possibility. Though Alabama is a real contender in his recruitment, so we'll have to see. That hasn't obviously OU and Alabama and running backs. I get if OU fans are a little scared of that reality right now, but OU is a very real contender for him. And I've talked to Javonte Barnes. I actually need to put together, like, we've talked off and on for like a week, and I need to actually put it into like an interview and like a story form instead of just a bunch of random notes. But OU's very big on him. So, like I said, it's got a chance to be a really special skill class for Oklahoma.
Real quick, Bob, you've got to get off to a Lon Kruger Zoom call. Are you still with us, or did you bolt?
I'm still getting set up at the very moment.
Okay, just real quick, let's talk about OU hoops before you get out of here. And I know when I say real quick, I'm saying real quick. But obviously, no one could have envisioned that they'd make the run that they made through with Kansas and Texas and Alabama, and then they come up short against Texas Tech, still missing Austin Reeves. You saw Oklahoma State last night lose a really rough one to TCU, and they got Oklahoma State now swept by TCU, which is just bizarro world. But 2 games left against OSU. You still got Baylor. And this team is 4 seed. I mean, is that the goal here? Heading into the tournament?
I think it's possible for sure. They get a little break. It feels like they can, and that will be. I'm curious to see how they respond Saturday, because it's the first time in a while where you just expect them to go out and dominate. Iowa State is terrible, especially when they're on the road. This is the game where you're up by 20 at halftime and you're just sort of chilling, and we'll see if they've got that type of killer instinct. They've got that ability to do just that. And Austin Reeves should be back. We'll get Kruger to confirm here in the next 5-10 minutes, but Austin Reeves should return for this one, with the goal of Alondes Williams returning Wednesday when Baylor comes to town.
You would think that this group would handle it like the group that we think that they are, as far as guys that have played a lot of basketball, a veterans type group that would certainly go out and handle Iowa State. They're terrible.
Yeah, and the thing is about with this team, even if their shots aren't falling, they bring their defense every single game. And that's why Monday at Tech was so interesting. Like, their shots weren't falling, but it's not like it meant they didn't do all the other things well. And
if you weren't a Tech fan,
Harkless and Gibson.
If you weren't a Tech fan or an OU fan, you wanted nothing to do with watching that game, because that was probably pretty boring to watch. I mean, there was just no offense. I mean, they did a great job on Mac McClung. I mean, his only points came from the free throw line. But they were fantastic defensively. They just didn't have enough. They didn't have that guy. Harkless wasn't hitting. They were Manic, even though he played better. They just didn't find that guy. Harmon wasn't the guy for him. So
yeah, and when they were down 50-40, you thought it was over, and then it came like
they did find some offense right there. Yeah,
it's like they just kept coming, and that's the hallmark of this team right now is just that attitude that I think it really those transfers have brought with Harkless and Gibson. Who knew? Like talk about football going through the portal. Basketball, of course, has been using this for like the last 4 or 5 years, and you just don't know what you're going to get. You saw with like Miles Reynolds, like sometimes you have all the enthusiasm, but maybe you lack a little bit of the skill. This seems like the perfect combo where you're getting the right character off the court and the best possible player on the court. And this is by far, in my opinion, this is how OU wants to work the transfer portal when it comes to hoops.
All right, Bob, we'll let you go to Lawn Zoom, Basketball Zoom, and more to come from Bob there. And, of course, appreciate you, pal. That's
all right, guys. See you.
I never say that. Appreciate you, pal. That was weird.
Buddy.
Go get him, Chief. Other weird things coming up. Okay, so we're hitting on Raleek Brown. We had I wanted to get Bob in there real quick. Anything else, just recruiting wise? I mean, Bear Alexander in Georgia. That was kind of. I guess you kind of saw that coming toward the end.
Yeah. I mean, he took a random trip to Georgia. Who hasn't been seen at a lot of other campuses, but rolled out to Georgia. It's like I said, it's amazing the guys that don't take a lot of trips always seem to find a way to make a trip to Georgia. I don't know how that works, but that seems to happen a lot. Zach Evans was a very good example of that as well. So I don't know what to make of that.
Pissed at anybody. I mean, if he's taking shots at anybody, it's Georgia.
Georgia is a problem in OU's world. I don't think there's any doubt. And guys, everybody loves to talk bag on Texas, and I get it as OU fans why you would. I don't think there's a program in the country in the last 15, 20 years that has done less with more talent.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, they're recruiting almost on par with Alabama, and they have nothing to show for it.
Yeah, it's a bizarre place, and then it's like the other thing is they keep getting quarterbacks. Like, what quarterback in their right mind watches Georgia and is like, yeah, that's a quarterback factory. I need to go there.
It's one of those things that guys, we talk all the time, and I get as fans are like, well, you guys tell us all the time, OU needs to have NFL production before they can recruit this guy or that guy. And then they're like, well, what's Georgia doing? Like, really? Jake Fromm sold Brock Vandegrift and everybody else on the idea?
Yeah, they f***ed up Justin Fields. Like, you're doing more harm than good to quarterbacks, and they're still picking Georgia. It makes no fucking sense.
Well, the last two guys that they got, though, they're from Georgia.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it's not like they're going out and just pulling these national kids in.
That's true. I mean, but they got Jacob Eason. I know that's not really current regime, but they keep doing this stuff. I mean, Matt Stafford was from Dallas, and now to be fair, I will say in those time frames, Georgia actually had some decent quarterback play. It's just did Jake Fromm get any better from freshman year to senior or to his junior year when he left early?
His arm fell off. I mean, he couldn't throw a deep ball to save his life.
I mean, I'm not sure that he got worse. I think maybe Kerry had an elevated opinion of him, but either way, he didn't get better. I know you did. And I know this is a hard conversation to have.
But I mean, I saw him in person in the Rose Bowl, and I didn't think weak arm. When I watched his last year, even on television, I was like, God damn, what happened to his arm?
Guys, speaking of interesting, something that has happened here during the podcast, Connor Wigman, the guy that I thought was probably Oklahoma's most likely quarterback signee from their current list of offers, committed to Texas A&M. Wow. So OU is now going to have to speaking of a staff that's becoming a problem for OU. Yeah, well, becoming a problem for OU, as well as does it really matter what's happening on the field? I mean, you watched Kellen Mond and Spencer Rattler and thought, I'd like to be like Kellen Mond.
Yeah.
But, whatever.
How did the baseball side of that come in, Josh? As far as I know, he could be the top player in the state of Texas.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. There's a possibility Connor Wigman never plays college football. I mean, he is apparently a very, very good baseball player. And I know he had a really good relationship with OU staff, as a baseball guy as well. So that clearly has a role in this. There's no doubt about it. And again, I mean, he is from Cypress, Texas. He is 45 minutes from College Station, maybe an hour at most. So, it's not just, all things are equal here. So, I mean, it does matter a little bit, but you're dead on, Kerry. A&M is becoming a problem for Oklahoma. And, I feel like Oklahoma has got to be like, can we just get to the Alabama game, and Alabama just humiliates A&M again, and everybody can kind of get back to some normalcy?
It's crazy. I mean, it's just like trying to put two and two together. It doesn't make sense. There's something fishy. There's something really fishy. When it looks fishy and it smells fishy, it's usually fishy.
I mean, Jimbo was really recruiting well those last few years at Florida State, so it makes total sense he'd show up in Texas where he has no real roots and just suddenly take
dominating.
Off. Yep, makes all the sense in the world. Now there are some things. I mean, Texas being down and having all their problems, and this year, especially LSU not being, even reasonably competitive. I mean, that kind of hurt them. But yeah, there's some things that don't add up about that whole situation. But we'll
I don't want to be that guy because I think we have all seen, people point fingers at OU because anytime anybody wins, they're like, oh, they're cheating. But the problem is Texas A&M isn't winning at the level that would justify getting those players in there. Like, it's just so bizarre.
Well, and you usually have to build to it. You can say
Georgia's not either. I mean, Georgia went to the playoffs. 3 years ago?
Yeah.
It hasn't been back since. And they haven't even... Have they even played an SEC championship since then? It was LSU and...
Yeah, they played LSU and just got pounded by Burrow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Because why? Because they had no damn offense.
Yeah. It was awful. All right. Anything else that you want to hit on before we get out of here? Or Eddie?
No, I don't think so.
You've been so full of hot takes today.
Huh?
You've been so full of hot takes today. I just want to make sure you got them all out.
I have no hot takes.
I think, Eddie, do you want me to just start sending you some, really old hot takes? Like things that fire me and my two children up. We could, and you could just read them. I think that'd be great. Really riveting radio.
No, I think I'm good.
No.
All right, that'll do it for this edition. I'm just trying to rack my brain, make sure there wasn't anything big that we missed. I don't think that there was, but there probably was. Anyway, we'll be back again next week for another edition. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Remember, that Dead Soxy promo going on right now. You get your Valentine's Day discount, and you get to add your Sooner Scoop discount on top of the sale. So use that promo code Boomer along with the Valentine's discount and get really good savings right now on some new socks from deadsoxy.com. So thanks for listening. We'll see you guys back again next week on another edition of the Unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com.